In the shadowy corners of history, some monarchs ruled with wisdom, others with terror. But few wielded power like Queen Elira of Aurelia, the sovereign who turned justice into a blazing spectacle. She didn't just punish traitors, she incinerated them, alive, before her people in the town square. But was she a sadistic tyrant, or a survivor enacting divine vengeance? This is not myth. It's not folklore. It's a chilling chapter buried beneath scorched records and sealed archives. Behind every fire was a name, a betrayal. Behind every flame, a secret. And at the center of it all, a queen who trusted no one. Stay with us as we uncover the rise, the terror, and the haunting legacy of the queen who turned her enemies to ash and ruled a kingdom in smoke and silence. Before she was feared, before her name was whispered like a curse, Elira was just a girl. But even then, her soul was tempered in fire. Winter, 1561. The kingdom of Aurelia lay cloaked in snow. But inside the walls of Castle Varentis, a different storm raged. Assassins came before dawn, swift and silent. The king was found lifeless in the chapel. The crown prince struck down in the stables. The queen mother's body hung from the battlements. And there, in the shattered chapel, knelt Elira, 17, barefoot, her silk gown torn and soaked in the blood of her family. She did not cry. She stared into the flickering altar flames, face illuminated by firelight, lips moving in silent oath. Let the world take no more from me, unless it burns for it. That night, a girl died, and in her place, a queen was born, with vengeance in her breath and fire in her bones. Aurelia did not crown her. Elira took the throne with blood still on her skirts and silence in the court. The nobles gathered under the pretense of order, hoping to install a puppet queen. But Elira had already studied every name on the scroll. Every hand that signed her family's death had been marked. They thought her a child, fragile, unready, until she summoned the first one, Lord Rendell, a cousin to the king, trusted, loved, and guilty. He entered the throne room confident. He left screaming, dragged by soldiers in black armor, bound in chains. In the castle square, Elira appeared before the people for the first time, not in mourning black, but in crimson velvet. Her voice rang clear. For the blood he spilled, let fire judge him. The pyre was lit. The crowd watched in stunned silence. When the flames died, she did not flinch. She simply turned and called the next name. One by one, the trials began, and the ashes of traitors blackened the snow. Vengeance had given her the throne, but it was fear that built her crown. By the spring of 1562, the fires no longer shocked the people of Aurelia. They expected them. On the first day of every month, the black banner rose above the palace. It meant one thing, another trial by flame. Elira no longer spoke their names. She no longer wept for the fallen. Her court became a gallery of silence. Only the crackle of fire dared interrupt. And yet, justice turned to paranoia. She burned spies, rivals, dissenters, those who whispered, those who waited too long to bow, those who simply knew too much. Even her oldest advisor, Master Barinth, the man who taught her diplomacy, was dragged to the pyre, accused of treason by dream alone. The kingdom watched, no longer with awe, but terror. And far to the north, under the cloak of snow and secrecy, the first rebel banner was stitched in secret, a rebellion, born from ashes. For every pyre she lit, 10 more hearts burned with hate. By summer's end, whispers turned to footsteps, quiet at first, but purposeful. Villages in the north refused to send tribute. Messengers disappeared. Black banners were torn down in the night. And in the shadows, a name was spoken, Orin of the Flame. A former knight, thought dead, now risen like myth. He bore a burn scar across his face, a gift from Elira's first purge. His creed was simple: no more queens of fire. Elira, informed of the first rebel camp, did not hesitate. She sent the Iron Guard, but when they arrived, the village was already ash and smoke, burned not by Elira, but by Orin to deny her any ground. You taught us fire, his note read. Now choke on its smoke. The queen stared at the charred parchment for hours. For the first time in her rule, her hands trembled. What begins in fire rarely ends in peace. By the autumn of 1563, Varelia was no longer a kingdom. It was a battlefield. Smoke curled from villages like incense to fallen gods. Roads were lined with gallows, hung with rebels, soldiers, innocence. The line between them blurred daily. Queen Elira, once the symbol of justice, now moved with a mobile court, always fleeing shadows. Her throne became a traveling fortress, walls of iron, ceilings of flame. But Orin advanced. He struck supply lines, freed prisoners, infiltrated garrisons, and worse, he spread stories, tales of Elira's madness, of her dreams, whispering names, of her torching loyal towns for imagined slights. The people listened, and slowly, her soldiers hesitated. One night, at the siege of Belreach, her own captain refused the fire order. Elira executed him with her own blade. Loyalty, she hissed, means burning when I say burn. But the flame in her eyes no longer inspired fear, only pity. Power, when threatened, does not whisper. It screams in flames. Cornered in the capital of Hearthvale, Queen Elira prepared her final decree, the Inferno Doctrine. Every village suspected of harboring rebels was to be burned. No trial, no names, no survivors. Even her inner circle faltered. Lord Marin fled. 2 guards deserted. The palace priest set fire to his own robes in protest. But Elira moved like a woman possessed, eyes glassy, lips whispering to shadows. She believed the fire would purify, that ash would restore order. And so, she lit the match. In a single week, over 17 settlements disappeared into smoke. Fields blackened, rivers ran with soot. Even the sky choked on her wrath. But this time it was different. The people did not cower. They rose. From the ashes of burned homes came a single, thundering cry across the provinces. Down with the Fire Queen. She ruled the flames until they turned inward. The great halls of Hearthvale now echoed with silence. Ash coated the throne room like snow. No music, no messengers, only the queen and her ghosts. Elira had not left her chambers in 5 days. She spoke to shadows, whispered to mirrors, scribbled names on the walls. Some crossed out, some circled in blood. The fire she once commanded now flickered uncontrollably. Torches exploded, curtains ignited, even the royal banners curled inward and blackened like dying petals. They say she stopped sleeping, that her eyes were ringed in soot, that she muttered the names of the burned like prayers or curses. And in her final address to the court, what few courtiers remained, she wore a black crown of scorched iron and said, I am the last light in a world of traitors. Let them choke on smoke and memory. But outside her gates, thousands had gathered, and they were no longer afraid. Fiatis, but memory burns longer. When the rebels breached the palace, they expected carnage. Traps, one last inferno. But the great gates of Hearthvale stood open. Inside, no resistance, no guards, just a trail of soot-stained footprints leading to the throne room and the scent of cinders. Elira was gone, not slain, not captured, gone. On the throne, they found her crown, melted, fused to the scorched stone, and above it, scratched in blackened iron. The fire does not beg for forgiveness. Some say she burned herself alive in the sacred crypts. Others believe she escaped into the highlands, cloaked in ash, watching her kingdom turn against itself. But the legend lived on. Villages still speak of the Smoke Queen, a pale figure at the edge of dying fires, a whisper in the dark. She ruled through fear. But in the end, it was the fear that remained, not the queen.